Hi, and welcome to Lisa's Stamp Studio. I'm Lisa Curcio. Today I'm going to teach you how to make a pull-out fun fold slide card. I got the idea from my friend April, who made it for me as a birthday card last year. I did share it at the online stamping retreat last year, and I could not wait to share it with you here now. Now, if you don't know what the online stamping retreat is, you're going to want to head over to that website. You'll find the link below. We provide online fun fold card classes in a full day retreat right online from the comfort of your home. The next one is coming up in early October, and we'd love to have you join that wait list so we can notify you when registration opens. Now, if you are here in the live chat for tonight's premiere, or perhaps you're reading a comment, you might notice something a little bit different. We are now offering YouTube channel memberships. For just 99 cents a month, you're going to be able to get custom Lisa Stamp Studio badges and emojis to use. And in addition to that, you're going to get an exclusive opportunity to purchase merchandise that we have designed. To get all the information, just look for that join button right next to the subscribe button on a laptop or desktop computer. You will need to be logged into your YouTube account in order to see it. Now, as always, we would love to interact with you, so go ahead and sign into your YouTube account right now, which will allow you to use that live chat or comment function. I come back and I read every single comment. And you're going to want to snag that free project sheet. It's going to be linked for you down in the video description below. It's going to contain pictures, cutting dimensions, supplies, and a template for tonight's card. That's going to make recreating it for you at home so easy. Now make sure that you notice that beautiful name in blue tonight, Gina Curcio Hawley. Gina is my daughter. She works with me here at Lisa Stamp Studio and an avid stamper. She's here with me right now in the live chat so we can answer your questions live, and we'd love to interact with you. All right, we're ready. Let's get started. We're going to begin with a piece of cardstock that measures 5.5 inches by 9. I'm using crumb cake for the specific card. We're going to do two simple score lines. The first one is going to be at 1/2 inch, which is here. I'm using that straight ledge at the top. And the one reason I love this trimmer is that it includes both the scoring blade and the cutting blade, and they navigate up and down out of the way. Once you've got your paper in place, you can go ahead and close that clear track and score. I do want to point out that you have smaller cutting dimensions and scoring dimensions on this side as well. So if you want to hold it this way and then flip, you absolutely can. The next one is going to be at 4 3/4 inch. Again, make sure your cardstock is lined up nice and straight along that edge and score. Now we're going to move over to 5.5 inches. And instead of scoring, we are now going to cut. You're going to see my finger up underneath the cutting guide so that I can navigate the blade without it tearing my paper. You're going to line this up at the 3/4 inch mark. There's a little indicator on the blade. I know it's impossible to see on camera, but it's very visible in person. So once I have it lined up at 3/4 inch, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drop the blade, and I'm going to cut down to 4 3/4 inch, and I'm going to lift. That's going to give us a slit. We're now going to move over to 8 1/4 inch. So I'm going to open up the extendable arm here. I'm going to come over and slide to 8 1/4. And in essence, we're going to do the same thing. My finger is going to be here. I'm going to line this up at 3/4 inch. I'm going to drop the blade, and I'm going to cut down to 4 3/4 inch. When you're finished, you should have this. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to crease up on those score lines just to make it easier for you to follow along with me. Be sure you use your bone folder. You want to make sure that those are well enforced. Whenever you're making a fun fold, you want to make sure those crease lines are good and strong. The next step for me was to emboss the card front. Now this is completely optional, and you'll see that on my other samples. I'm going to be using the Snowflake Sky 3D embossing folder. It's a nice large 6x6 folder. I'm going to open this up so I can see where the crease is. And I'm going to line up the embossing folder, making sure that my pattern goes all the way to the crease line. I'm going to go ahead and run this through my embossing machine. Now that we have this embossed, you're going to see that our slits are still there, but we've got a really pretty pattern on the card base itself. I'm going to be using the Countryside Corners dies. Love these, one of my favorites. Anything with staggering sizes is always a winner. We're going to be using the 3 largest sizes to comprise this card. I've cut the 3rd largest one here from basic white cardstock. That's going to go inside of this area here for the surprise when we pull the slider on this. I've got some scratch paper underneath me, and I'm going to use the coordinating crumb cake ink. This is the beauty of Stampin' Up! Products, is the color coordination. So the ink is going to match the cardstock, that matches the alcohol-based markers, the accessories, the designer paper, and so on. The stamp set that I'm using is called Sophisticated Sled, and it's probably one of my favorites in the new online exclusives. It is also offered as a bundle, which means you will be able to receive the coordinating dies with the stamp set. And of course, bundles are going to save you 10%. I've pulled out the small snowflake image here, and I'm going to ink it up. And I don't want it to be too dark, so I'm going to stamp off one layer of ink on my scratch paper and then stamp the image here. I am going to rotate the stamp occasionally so that I have a variation of patterns. And I'm going to stamp this just randomly on the cardstock itself. Here at the bottom, you're going to want to type a small sentiment or a greeting. And in my case, I'm going to use that exact same stamp set. And I'm going to be using black memento ink for this. I'm going to go ahead and ink up my greeting. And I'm going to stamp that here near the bottom. This now is going to get adhered in between these two slits that are on the card front. You're going to want to make sure that the top of your label is going to coincide with the end of the slits in both areas. And it's very easy when you're visually in front of it. I'm going to use my precision glue press and add some glue around the outside edges. I've never been a big fan of liquid glue until this came into my life, and we'll chat about that in just a minute. But I love that it has a precision tip on it, which allows me to easily get into those little corners and, of course, angled cuts. And it's easy to use. I have very arthritic hands, so I struggle with squeezing. It's small, it fits in the palm of my hand. It comes with glue already in the bottle, and then once it's emptied, I add the multi-purpose liquid glue from my online store. It's my favorite. It's very strong and it dries clear. The glue bottle slips down inside, and basically what it does is a gentle squeeze here is going to disperse that precision glue. I'm going to show you here my silicone craft sheet. I'm going to just very gently, look at my fingers, very gently just press. So there's no pressure here on my hand. My fingers are just doing a gentle pull to get very tiny pieces of glue out. This is fantastic because if you're like me and you're heavy-handed with glue, you have mess everywhere. You're going to be able to find this amazing product called the Precision Glue Press over on my website under Shop, My Favorite Things, and then under Craft Room Favorites. Additionally, it comes with a stand. The tip goes down inside that pink plunger. Once it's in the plunger, the tip literally comes into contact with the needle and it creates an airtight seal so that this does not clog. When it's time to put it away at the end of the day, there's a beautiful needled tip here that screws right on. This has been a game changer when crafting. This will be the front of the card, and obviously this will be the back of the card, and you're going to need a place to write or sign. And in my case, what I did is I used another one of the Country Corners dies, and this time I used the second largest one, and I did do this step ahead of time just to save a little bit of time in the video. I did a few more snowflakes, and I used a different sentiment from that exact same stamp set. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add my precision glue around my outside edges. And this now is going to get centered here on the back of the panel. Remember, this is going to be the back of the card. Now we need the slide mechanism. And this time I've cut a piece from real red cardstock, and this is the largest of the Country Corners dies. The easiest way to do this is to actually cut this shape in half. I'm coming back here to my trimmer. The label is 5 inches long, so half would be at 2.5 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to line that up here, making sure it's straight along the edge, and then we are going to cut. And that's going to give you the 2 pieces that we need. Go ahead and take one of those pieces, and we're going to do a little bit of stamping on here. I'm coming back to my scratch paper, and this time I'm going to be using Versamark ink. Now, because Stampin' Up! Sells color-coordinated products, there is a real red ink pad, but I found that it was a little bit too dark. So Versamark is a wonderful substitution. It's a watermark stamp pad. So once you stamp on it, it's going to leave a very, very subtle background. I'm going to go ahead and ink that up with that exact same snowflake, and I'm going to stamp some here. As the ink on the Versamark starts to dry, this is going to become more of what's going to be the normal tone. Here on camera, it might not show up really well, but in person, it's perfect subtle background. The next step for me was to create another greeting. Now that's completely optional. You could have left this blank if you'd like. You'll see in my other samples I have some variations for you. I'm going to go back to the Memento Black ink pad, and this time I'm using the words Merry Christmas. Now these come from a stamp set that I have found myself using an awful lot this year. It's Greetings of the Season, and I love it because it's buildable. So these are all individual words, so you can mix and match the fonts and come up with custom phrases. I put the word Merry and Christmas next to each other on the same clear block. Let's go ahead and ink that up in the Memento ink. You're going to want to stamp this near the top of the label. You're going to need to leave a little bit of room here because we're going to have to create a pull mechanism. Let's go ahead and stamp that here. We're going to come back now to the card base and we're going to put these two pieces together. We're going to work between the slits. The solid one is going to go on the front, which is going to eventually hide this and maneuver up and down. You're going to tuck the raw ends behind the slits. Don't worry about it being too straight right now. Then what you're going to do is you're going to flip it over. We're going to take the one that we stamped and we're going to turn it upside down because remember, this is the front of the card underneath. This is the time that you're going to look to try to make sure that your label is even. So I'm looking for equal space here and here. With the top portion upside down, you're going to lay these two together where they would typically connect. I'm going to be using tear and tape for this. So just pull off a piece and rip it, and you're going to connect the two pieces. So I'm looking to align the label, and I'm going to place the tape as far to the outside as I can. You don't want to pull off the paper backing. That's really important. This is just going to be a connection. This tape is very, very strong, and as you can see, it's very simple to use. I'm going to come over to the other side, make sure it's matched up well, and connect these together. When you flip this over, that red piece now is going to slide up and down. Now we need to put something here on the slider to create some interest for this card. I'm bringing in my Misty stamp positioning tool here. Absolutely love this because if you're like me and you struggle with getting your images clear the first time, this is a game changer. In addition to that, the larger images I have difficulty pushing, and so I don't get that clear image. This is fantastic because once you've mounted it to the clear hinge, you can repeatedly stamp it over and over again in the exact same spot. So if I don't get a good impression the first time, I can do it again. It's also great if you're making repetition cards. So for instance, if you're making holiday cards or invitations that you're going to be making multiples of, you can just pull out the pieces of paper one at a time and just keep going. I'm going to open up my hinge flat here on my work surface. This is one reason why I absolutely love the Misty because this is nice and flat to work with. I'm going to be using Old Olive ink for this, and I'm going to ink that up. I'm going to make sure my cardstock is in the corner. My magnet's going to secure it in place, and I'm going to close the hinge. And because of my arthritic hands, I love this little pressure tool. I have the Misty and the pressure tool both linked for you on my website under Shop, My Favorite Things, Craft Room Favorites. Do you see how it's uneven and this is really light? No problem. Making sure it's still in the corner because photopolymer is sticky. We're going to go ahead and ink up the side once again. I'm going to close the door and we are going to press. When I open this, you're going to see I have a beautiful design that's well inked everywhere. I'm using a damp microfiber cloth to clean off my stamp, and then you can simply peel it off here and put it back into your stamp case. There's one more thing that I wanted to do, and I wanted to stamp a cardinal for my wreath. I was concerned that it was going to be too dark. If I ink it up and I stamp here, I find that the outline is really stark. So what I decided to do was ink it up. I stamped here, but then I decided to use the lighter shade. It really kind of gives me a no-line image, but it provides just enough emphasis on where I need to place my color. For the wreath, I knew it needed some extra color, so I went ahead and I used the same color alcohol-based Stampin' Blends markers. This is Old Olive. Again, we've talked about that color coordination. You're going to get the combination of both the light and the darker shade. Which one you use first is entirely up to you. It's a personal preference. I tend to be very heavy-handed, so I use the light shade first and I go back and accent with the dark. But since these areas are so tiny, I'm going to go ahead and just give you an idea of what I did. I put a little dark in each of my leaves, omitting the berries. And you can see because the areas are so small, I literally put a dot in some spots and just a little streak in others. Now the alcohol base of this marker needs some time to evaporate before you lay down the next shade because you don't want it to bleed outside the lines. Additionally, unlike the Memento black ink pad, which is water-based, these are dye-based. So you're going to want to make sure that you don't oversaturate the ink that you stamped it with so that you can prevent bleeding. Because the area is small, I'm going to go ahead and use the bullet tip. And I'm going to pull the dark into the light areas, working very closely not to oversaturate the stamped lines. And I did this on the entire image. As I mentioned, there are coordinating dies, so I went ahead and I die cut the wreath after I colored it, as well as that adorable little cardinal. And you can see, because I stamped off some of the black on here, it actually makes the lines look more natural when it's colored. One of the beautiful things of the sophisticated sled dies is the ability to not only die cut the image that's part of the stamp set, which you'll find here, is the ability to make one from the dies itself, which I've already done ahead of time. So we have the frame, which is here, and I have the sled, which is here. Now that's a 2-for-1, so you're going to get both the bottom portion and the arc for the sled. I'm going to bring in my silicone craft sheet for this next step. It protects my work surface from liquid glue, hot glue, and adhesive, which means I don't have to fight that sticky spot the whole time. I absolutely love this. I've got the frame here. I want to give you an idea on where this is going to get mounted. I pushed it down a little bit so that I can see the red frame below the bottom of the opening. So this kind of mimics where like the hardware would be on your sled. Now, since this is a very detailed image, I'm going to go ahead and use these adorable reverse tweezers, and I've really come to love these. I'm going to add a little bit of liquid glue, and you can see how little I can get this out, and just some of those areas omitting those little circle openings. Once I have that in place, those tweezers are going to be my best friend and allow me to position this exactly where I want it, and I can simply squeeze and let go. I was worried that these would be too difficult for my hand with my arthritis, but they're actually quite simple, and you only need to open them just a tiny bit. I have these linked for you too on my website under Shop My Favorite Things and Craft Room Favorites. As you can tell, there's quite a few non-Stampin' Up! Products that I absolutely love that work great here in my studio when I'm creating. The next piece is the arc for the top of the sled, and we're going to go ahead and attach that here as well, and we'll add some more of that glue from the press. This now is going to go across that red bar here, and I'm just kind of lining up the best I can those little openings to represent where the hardware would be on the frame of the sled. Because of the silicone craft sheet, I'm not worried about any excess glue falling on my work surface. And again, like I said, the multi-purpose liquid glue inside the press dries very, very quickly, and it's very strong. Our next step is our wreath with our cardinal, and I wanted him to sit inside of the wreath. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a tiny drop of that glue right here at the bottom. See, this is the beauty of that press, is how much you can actually get out, just little drops at a time. So I'm going to connect my little bird like so, and then we're going to attach him in place. Now I'm ready to put these two pieces together, and for this I'm going to use dimensionals. So I'm going to flip this upside down, and I'm going to probably use a combination of mini dimensionals and full-size dimensionals. The area here where the bird is connected to the wreath, I can actually use a dimensional to do double duty for me here. I'm going to place the dimensional to hold the bird and the wreath together. It's just an extra sense of reinforcement. I'll take another dimensional and I'm going to anchor that here across my wreath. I'm also going to use a mini dimensional to put on the back of the cardinal for balance. I'm going to remove the paper backings using my Take Your Pick tool. I love that paper piercing tool attachment. It actually peels off those little backings for me so I don't have to do that with my arthritic hands. This image now is going to get attached here to my sled. How high or low you put it is entirely up to you, but I'm going to go ahead and make sure the top of my wreath is here near the top of the sled as if it was hanging. I thought it needed a bow, but I didn't want something overbearing, so I made a little tiny bow with baker's twine, and because it's so small, I'm going to use the precision glue press. I'm going to put a tiny amount of glue right here in the center where I'm going to want the bow. Remember that the glue dries clear. I'm going to go ahead and take my bow and I'm going to press that right on top, and it will take, just under a minute or so to dry. I'm using my Take Your Pick tool to make sure I've got it in the right place where I want it, and I'm just going to push, and then we'll let it sit and dry. Coming back here to the card base, we are now going to attach the image. Very important that you have no adhesive in the upper portion here, otherwise it's going to fall here, which means this will not slide. I'm going to flip this over. You can see that these dimensionals here are going to be a problem because they're probably going to fall above this panel. Now I'm going to give you a really crazy tip. Two things that are going to work really well. One is to use your embossing buddy. This is the little powder tool that you use when you heat emboss. If you place that over the dimensionals, the powder from the bag will actually remove the adhesive, making it not sticky. Obviously, you can use your take your pick tool as well. This has a dial out attachment and it has a spatula on the other side, which you can see is well loved here. And that'll let you get up underneath here to actually remove the dimensionals very easily. So either way is going to work. Now that I know these are no longer sticky, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to position this here. You can use dimensionals again to elevate this slightly, or you can use liquid glue. I'm going to use dimensionals. So I know I need to work from the cardinal area down with my dimensionals. I'm coming back to my silicone craft sheet and I'm going to use my mini dimensionals for this. Again, from the cardinal down. But we want to make sure that this is well balanced because I'm going to be mailing this card. Your cards are going to go through a mail meter at the post office that has rollers in it. And if you don't have the dimensionals balanced well, the card will actually come out lopsided from the other end. I'm now holding this here and I can see I can add one more dimensional right above the cardinal just to make sure this has got a little bit more stability. And I'll also add a couple next to it on either side. I always check before I start adhering it to make sure I don't have too many. And then once again, we'll go ahead and remove those backings. I'm going to place the image to making sure that the bottom of my sled is going to fall on top of that tag. And then we're going to press that in place, just centering it on the tag itself. Once again, you want to make sure that this slides freely. If it doesn't, it means that you have adhesive or dimensionals near the top that's sticking to this back panel. Now we need a way for the receiver to pull the tag that's also intuitive. So you can see here at the top where the tag is actually meeting the base of the card. What I like to do is use a pencil, and I like to visually look to where that tag is. And I can see that the center is somewhere around here. So I'm going to make a little dot right there. We're going to create a notch there. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open this up, and don't worry because this is a little flimsy because of the tape. It's all going to be sealed, which will make it secure. I'm going to use a 1-inch circle punch. This is a retired product from Stampin' Up, but it's wonderful to keep in my stash. I'm looking here and here to see if there's equal space between the punch. Oh, maybe half or 2/3 of the way down. We're going to punch that out. Now, once you've punched it out, you should be able to see the cardstock here pulled to the top. I want you to use the pencil again. I want you to make an indication on where you're going to punch a hole or attach something to pull this out. I'm using a 1/8 inch handheld punch. Again, it's a product Stampin' Up! Does not sell, but I'm going to go ahead and use that, and I'm going to punch a hole right where my pencil mark is. I have 3 strands of white baker's twine. Mine are a little bit longer than what you probably need, but I hate wrestling with this, so always make it a little bit longer. These are about 9 inches. I'm going to create a pull on here. So I'm going to create a loop at the top, and I'm going to make this as narrow as I possibly can, and I'm going to put these through the hole. And I'm just going to make sure that I pull all 3 strands. Once I have them all the way through, I'm going to open it up so there's a loop. I'm going to bring the raw ends from the front to the back. And all I'm going to do now is very carefully tighten up that tension to create that slip knot. You don't want to pull so hard that you rip that cardstock. The reason I like this many strands is I love the way that it gives a little stability to the pull versus just one strand of the baker's twine. I'm going to come in with my paper snips and I'm going to give that a little bit of a trim. Now we're going to seal this, and this is the most important part. We're going to go ahead and we're going to turn it upside down, and your tear and tape adhesive is going to go on this 1/2 inch strip. Starting here at the top, we're going to run it right down the center of that 1/2 inch area, and then you're going to rip where you want it to end. Make sure that you burnish the backing on that tape so that the tape is well stuck underneath. I'm going to take my Take Your Pick tool and I'm going to get that started. I am not going to release the whole thing. I'm only going to release a small portion. So we have a little tail here. You want to make sure that this flap is over the tag like this. If it's under, the tag will not pull. The great thing about this is now that when you have this in place, you can literally just tack down very gently a little bit, and you can test this to make sure that it works. If it doesn't, it means that your tag and your adhesive are in the wrong place. So once again, make sure the tag is down, the flap is over it, and then once you've got it all aligned where you want it, press, and then take this little piece of paper that has the tape on it and just gently start to pull, and that's going to release the tape and the adhesive so that you can close the flap. It's so much easier than dealing with an entire strip of sticky that you have to fight with. These are the cherry cobbler and pearl berries. They come attached as a threesome, or you can use them individually, which I love. You're going to notice here that they're in threesomes in most places. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use that, make my life easy. I did color them because they don't fit perfectly over the ones that are stamped. So if there's any area that's showing, I don't have to worry about it looking really obtrusive. So I'm going to go ahead and attach those here. I'm using that take your pick tool, kind of like my third hand, and they have glue dots already on the back. Now for the ones here at the bottom, you're going to see that my tail is actually covering some of it. So I'm going to run those off a little bit off to the edge of my wreath. And that little bit of bling really adds an awful lot to this card, doesn't it? The great news about this is it's going to fit in a regular A2 size envelope. Let me show you those other card samples that I've created for you. I created an adorable and unusual birthday card using this Simply Sparkling bundle, stamps and dies. Now, you're not going to find these in any publication. This is an online exclusive, just like the sled stamp set and bundle, but this is so fun to use. And this is the card I created. I used peach pie cardstock, some silver foil, some beautiful coordinating glimmer paper, added some of the peaches from that stamp set. And then my slide on this one has Fizztastic Friend with some stamped bubbles in the background. I'm not sure if the camera's going to pick it up, but I did use Versamark to stamp some bubbles. And on the back of the card, it says, "You're soda lightful." Add a little bit more here with some stamped images and have a really cute and simple slider pull card for this one. My last card comes as a request from many of you asking for Grandparents' Day cards. You're creating simple cards with your kids. This Playing in the Rain stamp set is fabulous for that because the images are simple and bold, which means your kids can color them in themselves. It does have coordinating dies. They need to be purchased separately. This was a carryover product, so the bundle is no longer available. The dies are fabulous because there are pieces in here that accessorize these images that are not included with the stamps. And this is the card I created for this one. I kept it kid-friendly, so the kids can actually color this in. You can either use their scissors to cut them out or the dies. Stamp the Clouds, some daisies from Cheerful Daisies stamp set, just pulled in other stamp sets to create this simple card. But you're going to see on this one, it says "You are loved." And you're going to notice when I pull the clouds up, it says "It's your special day for Grandparents' Day." I stapled on the ribbon on this one. Gave me more of a school type kid feeling. And the staple is flush in the back, so you don't have to worry about anybody hurting themselves. My tip here is to attach it with a glue dot first and then staple it. That mini stapler is fantastic, and I have it linked for you on my website as well. And I just used little X and O, left some room for the kids to sign with their adorable signatures, and just put some flowers here from the stamp set on the back. So whether you're using something for upcoming Grandparents' Day, which by the way is September 8th, or you're making a really fun and different birthday card, or you're starting your holiday cards, I've got some great ideas for you using this easy, fun fold, pull, surprise slider card. As always, I love to know your favorite cards, so pop down right now in the comments and let me know. Your feedback is very important as I design future fun folds for you. Just a reminder, this is the time to redeem those bonus days coupons you earned with Stampin' Up! In July. So make sure that you use those coupon codes when you redeem them in my online store. This offer for redemption is good through August. And if you love exclusive ideas, I have you covered with Stamp Studio memberships. These exclusive projects will be delivered right to your inbox every Monday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. The best part, they are not watermarked. So if you are a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator or perhaps you teach classes, I've got you covered. You can use these ideas and the tutorials to share with others. There are 2 levels. Level 1 includes a beautiful card every single Monday as I described, and it's $5 a month. Level 2 includes everything in Level 1, but you'll also receive a monthly fun fold card. In addition to that, you're going to get a coupon code to use in my PDF tutorial library to get tutorials at a discount. And of course, I give random prize product giveaways to those in Level 2. You're going to find all the information over on my website at lisastampstudio.com. Click on memberships. Now, while you're over on my website, scroll all the way to the bottom and there's a little form there. If you fill that out, I will add you to my free weekly e-newsletter so I can continue to inspire you and provide you always up-to-date information. If you have enjoyed today's video, do me a favor and hit that thumbs up button, which is a like here on YouTube. It helps me immensely. In addition to that, subscribe if you're brand new and you're watching for the first time. We would sure love to have you join us in the future. Thank you so much for joining me, everyone. I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day.